Hi, Costas. Look, thanks for making the time today and welcome to the show. I'm definitely excited to have you as one of our guests today.
Thank you, Christopher. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Look, looking forward to talking about growth and innovation, in the financial trading industry. And with you as the head of customer support at OneRoyal, um, really looking forward to your insights on, customer service and trading and, how you understand that customer support drives the growth in the brokerage industry, not just the marketing and sales. Definitely is
Mhm.
a super important role.
Absolutely, absolutely. As you say, sales is what brings clients through the door. The sales team's retention, but customer support is part of the process of keeping the client satisfied and keeping them trading.
Absolutely. And so if we look at One Royal, what brought you to One Royal, and what's inspired you to focus on customer support in the trading industry?
I guess I've been in a support type role almost all my life, going back to um, you know from being a teenager working in my parents' family business, which
Yeah,
which was fish and chips.
yeah.
Nothing glamorous, I'm afraid. But
Hospitality. That's where you learn well.
but it's weird though because even as a teenager, without realizing it, I was learning the skills which I still use to this day, some 40 odd years later. Um, it's front facing, you're multitasking, you're learning stock control, you're learning how to deal with all types of customers. You
Yes.
know, these are transferable skills. You know, from going into there and then starting my own business later, which had nothing to do with food. Um, moved from Manchester to Cyprus in the early 90s.
Mm.
Opened up my own DVD rental store. Well, back then it was VHS. Um, but then, you're taking, again, it's front facing.
Yeah.
So the thing with that type of business is you're not getting passing trade. With that type of a business, you're building a relationship, which is similar to what I'm doing today. You're building a relationship with the client. Um, you know, you go and rent your movie, you're going to go back to the same. If you're happy, if you do your job correctly, your client will stay. People speak with their feet. If they're not happy, they will go. It's as simple as that. So I had that business for 17 years. And that was something which I very much started with a let's see how this goes kind of mentality. You know, research your market, focus on the quality of your own output. These are the lessons that I've learned in my career. So if you focus on what you're doing correctly, then the results will come. If you're always looking at what the other person is doing, you're going to lose your focus, you're going to lose attention. And you're paying too much attention to what someone else is doing and not focusing on the fact that you're not doing your job correctly. Your clients are not satisfied because of what you're doing, not because of what someone else is doing. Um, I've learned that word of mouth is the best form of advertising. So when you do focus on what you do, when you do it correctly, you do it well, everything else will fall into place.
And then if we look at, financial industry, multi-asset brokers, you know,
Hmm.
do you think the role of customer support has evolved over the years?
Evolved, it has. It's moving from um, a general. So if you go back to your classic customer support as we remember it from say 5, 10 years ago, there may have been live chat, which has been around for a while. It was mostly in the form of email. It was somewhat impersonal in that you ask a question, you get an answer. Now, as it's evolving with technology and especially AI, um, it's becoming a very personalized experience for the client. So there are ways now to know who you're speaking to without asking them. If the client, for example, is coming to your support services via the client portal in which they're logged into this, we can recognize who the client is. Then we know who you're speaking to, which means that the question that they're asking, the answer is relative to who they are. So if somebody's asking for, let's say in financial services, they want to make a deposit and they're from a certain country. Well, if they're logged in and you have their CRM details, then you know who they are. So the answer that you can give to them would be specific to the territory that they're coming from. So you're not going to waste their time with generic answers. These are the biggest changes from between now and say 5-10 years ago. So technology is coming. A lot of people think that the technology is here to replace the human beings, but I don't believe that. I think it's here to assist them.
Fantastic. And then if we talked, what about challenges? So what are the unique challenges that customer support face in the forex trading um, financial space with customer support?
The challenges are mainly being able to deal with issues that, let's call them ad hoc issues. A payment provider goes down, which is something that we don't necessarily have any control over because it's an outside element. We rely on them, but we don't have any control over them. So the ability to be able to adapt quickly is a challenge. Knowing what you can say, what you can't say in those instances. Obviously, you're not going to say, sorry, it's broken. That doesn't reflect well. So you'll say, we're doing some maintenance, we're upgrading our systems, please bear with us, we're fixing it as quickly as we can. You put a positive spin on it. And in the meantime, behind the scenes, you're cracking whips and the wheels are turning and there's frantic emailing and phone calling going on. But that, this is one of the challenges of how to deal with things like that. Also, within a support environment, making sure that you have both the teams, as in the live agent, and the technology side of things, which would be the AI agent, working in partnership, not fighting against each other. So you wouldn't want you're in conversations with your company, whichever one that may be, as a customer, and the answer you get from the AI agent differs to the one that you get from a live agent. There has to be some sync involved.
Yeah.
So, but this is down to configuration. This is down to knowing your industry, knowing your company. There are many forex companies around the world, but not everyone does things the same. So you have to make sure that you're not giving like a generic answer in a forex perspective, rather than giving one which is OneRoyal.
Definitely. And one of the things from a marketing background that's always been super important to me is the KYC and onboarding component, right? How do you find what's a successful partnership with the sales team and customer service to ensure that that client onboarding is as smooth as possible?
Well, we use an automatic verification system, and basically the client has the interface to upload, take a photograph of their documents, their ID card, driving license, passport, etc., and then it will tell them that we need also, for example, a proof of residence, which would be utility bill and something like this. The challenges we face with that kind of technology is that a lot of times, if it's a document that has handwritten elements to it, it might not recognize it. Certain languages it can sometimes struggle with. So it's about getting the balance right between, and also the communication of information. So you may have a document that is handwritten, it can be read, but the automatic system couldn't quite grasp it. But with the second eye, a human eye, it's perfectly fine, it gets approved. So while that process is occurring between the initial upload, not being able to verify, getting someone to have another look, oh yes, it's fine, you have to make sure that this information is being communicated correctly to the client so that they understand the process. Transparency is key. Let them understand what's going on.
That's very insightful. And with that, how do you measure success with customer support in terms of client satisfaction, but then also business growth?
I think that the easy answer is to measure KPIs. That's
Mm-hmm.
always there are always KPI reports for every department, and customer support is no different. The key difference is understanding how satisfied your client is. So a perfect customer support department is one that will maintain the client even in light of difficulties that they're facing. So a client has to be so satisfied with the level of customer support that they receive that even though they face a certain issue, it was resolved quickly, the information given was accurate, the person I spoke to was empathetic to what I was facing, the challenge I was facing, and it got resolved as quickly as it possibly could. So, there are always going to be issues. Anyone who tells you that their company doesn't have any issues, I don't believe it. So the key is, as a support department, how well did we handle that issue? How well did we look after the client? Is the client satisfied? It's it's not it's not that difficult when your team is trained, when the information is available, and when you're transparent with the client.
So what are your what do you think your most effective KPIs are to measure that?
Um,
Are there like certain
the most
metrics that you
effective
track?
ones, right? I mean, obviously, you need to know the volume of inquiries coming in
Mm-hmm.
relative to the number of agents you have available to deal with them. The last thing you want is for a client to be waiting 15, 20 minutes for an answer. That's just not acceptable.
Okay.
So that's an important KPI. First response times, very important. Language that the communication is being conducted in. You can try using Google Translate for as much as you want, but sometimes it just doesn't translate things accurately. There are languages in which Google Translate is not your friend.
Yeah.
And it
I've
is
been there
getting
with marketing
better.
campaigns.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Where you think it was perfect, but when a native speaker reads it, the eyebrows start to go, "No, what am I reading? What did that just say?" It does happen. It does happen. It is getting better. The introduction of AI means that it's not, it's being cross-referenced and
Mm.
updated and upgraded on, as we speak. The same phrase being entered in within 15 minutes through AI, it might have had an update. So the second time you enter the same phrase, it has now come back accurately.
Yeah. And what?
So language is important. You have to have native speakers if possible.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want to touch on next. What do you find is your most effective channels to give good customer support?
So the three main ones, which I find, are email, tried and tested. It never fails. Also, WhatsApp is actually a very strong channel. A lot of people prefer to use it. So we offer currently, to give you an indication, we've got email, we've got a widget on our website for live chat, we've got WhatsApp, we've got Facebook Messenger, and we've got Instagram
Mhm.
DMs. So if you go on our pages and you message us through any of those, through Facebook or through Instagram, and you send a direct message, it comes straight through to customer support. Of all of those channels that we offer, email and WhatsApp are up there, and but up there by a distance. For some reason, Messenger and Instagram, there's quite a drop off in the numbers of inquiries that are coming through those channels.
Then if we think future. So how are you looking to, scale your customer support service in the most efficient manner to match,
Mm-hmm.
One Royal's growth ambitions?
Sure. Well, as we all know, like it or loathe it, AI is here, is not going away, but used correctly will revolutionize customer support, and it'll allow us to streamline the support process. So there are a number of options available to us, which we are implementing, will allow us to provide a hyper personalized support experience to the customer. So, as I mentioned earlier, if a client is logged into their client portal, we already have the information of who we're speaking to. So the questions that they will be asking, we don't have to waste their time by asking them to clarify who they are and which country do you mean, which deposit are you referring to, which withdrawal are you asking about. We know who they are. We have access instantly to the CRM. We can go and present to them their last 5 withdrawals that, and we can say, just click on the one that you say you didn't receive and let me check for you. As soon as they press on that particular withdrawal that they say they didn't receive, all the information will be presented to them. If they then come back and say that they didn't receive this amount, it can be automatically escalated to the finance team. They can look into it, come back with some information. That information is passed on to the client. It just improves the experience because first and foremost, the client's experience has to be the best it can possibly be. Yeah. We come secondary. The client comes first. If it takes us a little bit longer or a few more escalations, it's the client that comes first, and that's what's most important. So AI allows you to provide a seamless experience across all channels to the client. So what often happens is they will send an email, but then follow up on one of our chat channels.
Yeah.
The system can automatically identify, because it will know the source of all of these communications, and it will identify that they're all coming from the same person. So it will then say, thank you very much for contacting us. We've received your inquiry already via email, and we've escalated it to the relevant team. Or if it's already been dealt with, and their initial request has already been processed, and when they come to live chat and they're asking the same question, you can just tell them it's been done. Go check your platform. No need to, because duplicates is the bane of any support team. If the more channels you have, I've seen it. He'll send an email. He'll come to live chat. He'll go to WhatsApp. He'll go to Messenger. He'll go to Instagram. Before you know it, depending on what time they came as well, it might be now being dealt with by a different member of the team who is not aware that they already came 3 times earlier before they started. So AI streamlines that. And it also, as I said, the client experience is important, but it's also important to streamline operations, because you don't want to be sending the same request 5 times to your back office department and wasting their time if they've already processed it 3 hours earlier. So this is an important evolution, shall we call it, of where support is going when you embrace AI rather than try to stay away from it because you don't like the sound of it and we're all going to lose our jobs.
Sure. So support and efficiency. Love it. All right, Costas, that has been incredibly insightful. For anyone who wants to learn more about OneRoyal or maybe even connect with you directly, what's the best way for them to reach out?
They can come to our website. They can send an email to support@oneroyal.com. They can visit our website, which is www.oneroyal.com. We're more than happy to answer any questions and happy to provide our services to whoever is looking for a trading account.
Wonderful. Well, sounds like you got it all under control there. So thank you so much, Costas. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.